and Jason Kirby, who's become a regular, an insider here on the I Love CVille Network and Real Talk. A man who tremendously knows this business. Nikki Chambliss, team leader at Keller Williams, fresh off a brief hiatus, a vacation.
Yes, a week
Is that right?
off. Yeah, where I actually did not work. It's crazy. I didn't know what to do with myself.
Wow. So did you play some music?
So I ended up going to having band practice, which was really nice and needed, And then, I rewatched the original Top Gun, and then saw the new Top Gun, which is definitely the way to do it. Don't just be like, yeah, I remember the other one. Doesn't matter. Watch the old one first.
I love the old one.
Yeah.
So does Jason Kirby. You love the old Top Gun, right?
Of course. That was my era.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a kid, but
yeah.
I remember watching it when it was brand new.
Me too. Absolutely. It was impactful. It was a great movie. We'll turn the cameras on and start the program here in a matter of moments. If you want to give Jason and Nikki some props, just put your comments in the feed. Two cool cats here on studio on a Monday here. Judah Wickower, we can rock and roll when you're ready, my friend. Got some questions for you guys already. Very nice. Guys, good Monday morning. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. It's a pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille Network on a show presented by Keller Williams Alliance. Today's show is going to be dynamite. Keith Smith, R&R, as we told you last week, visiting his family on the West Coast. He's heading to Seattle as we speak. Nikki Chambliss and Jason Kirby in the house and on studio. And Nikki Chambliss, you're known quite well here through her many appearances on this network. She's a team leader at Keller Williams.
Yes.
She's in a band. She's a rock star mom, all around cool person. Now, Jason Kirby, I think you're getting to know quite a bit as well here. He coined the phrase complimentary seller possession that went viral here. He's an unbelievable agent with Keller Williams Alliance, and just a fantastic, and I sincerely mean this, like really good broadcaster. You have tremendous perspective and a succinct way of delivering that to people so it's clear to understand. Very true. Judah Wickower is our director, but Nikki, you jump in here. Happy Monday to you.
Oh, happy Monday. Yeah, it's really awesome to be back. As much as taking a break is needed and nice, it's also weird to not be doing the things, and it's so nice to be back.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And Jason Kirby's back for maybe, a few weeks since the last time you were here?
I think it's been, 3 or 4 weeks, possibly.
Yeah, not
too long.
Yeah, too long.
And 3 or 4 weeks in the real estate game is like an eternity, Jason Kirby.
It's a totally different market.
Right?
Exactly, that's right.
Do you want to start with that and help us out with understanding today's market?
Sure. I think, in broad strokes, we've seen, when we look at the economic data, it's typically year over year. So sometimes when we look at those numbers, we're like, wow, not much has changed. But in our market, we're looking relative to like 90 days ago. So one big factor is we're looking at about a doubling of the inventory. And that's not necessarily additional homes coming to market. It's just that those homes that do come to market are staying on market a little bit longer. Yeah.
Nikki Chambliss, you're seeing something similar as a team leader at Keller Williams Alliance here.
Oh, absolutely.
What are you seeing?
Well, we've been talking about this, I guess, I don't know, over the last, I had a little bit of a gap there. So the last show, we definitely talked about this, where things are slowing down a little bit, and it's nice. Like, it gives buyers an opportunity. Everyone can just kind of breathe a little bit, whereas before there was no room to breathe, right? And it was super challenging. Even the sellers in the past 6 months or so to 3 years really have been happy with the market, but even the sellers were like, wow, this is a lot, right? So everybody's just getting an opportunity to breathe. We're coming back to more of a normal, and it's really nice.
We have the fabulous, the undeniably talented Mary Kirby watching the program right now. Mary Kirby, hello and welcome to the show. We love when you watch the program. The challenge that seems to be very present in the Central Virginia market and many markets across the Commonwealth of the country is the very quick nature of the changing nature of this market.
Yes.
We were talking last week with Quentin. We were talking, you and I, Jason, before the show started. The market has changed. Sellers maybe have not changed their outlook with how the market has changed, and that's caused perhaps some friction. Quentin identified this last week, and now it's a matter of professionals, you guys, educating sellers on what's happening.
You're right. What we're often seeing, and this happens in many aspects of any kind of economic thinking, and when we're looking at selling a home or buying a home, a lot of economics come into play. But there's a fallacy called confirmation bias or preferential bias, and typically what we do is we are, in a way, prisoners of a certain narrative, and it takes a long time for information and data to shake us from that perception. And in a homeowner's case, if they met with a agent 60 days ago, 90 days ago to work out a pricing strategy and certain numbers were tossed around, that's challenging then to go back and say, hey, actually things have changed. So you're right, it comes down to education, it comes down to showing them what we see and explaining why we think what we think, but most importantly, always reiterating that the buyers make the market.
Well said. Well said. I'd love to walk down this row with you guys
Yes.
here and help me understand. You guys are the pros. What's with what do you make of the mindset of we'll come out of the gates a little hot, maybe a little high from a price standpoint, and then we'll do a price reduction, or we'll come out of the gates priced correctly and hopefully not have an extended DOM, days on market? Because that seems to be the challenge that's happening here. I'm seeing price reductions happening in the car footprint. So can we go down that road of how you have that conversation and how pricing from day one is paramount in this market?
Yeah.
It is. We're often dealing with a tug of war between price or money and time. And if a client's preference is the top dollar, sometimes they'll lean more toward the higher end of that idea of what the price range for the home would be. If they're looking for something to happen very quickly, then we want to make it look like an opportunity to buyers out there. There are still homes selling in 48 hours. There are still homes getting multiple offers, but they're priced as such, and they're in the condition required for that price. I think where the disconnect is that there are sellers possibly pushing that envelope, and agents in some cases pushing that envelope with also the thought of, hey, we're going to get probably 30 showings the first weekend, probably going to have 10 offers for you. I think all of that is gone.
We're seeing showings with gas cards, incentivizing people to show up.
Yes.
Gift cards to
Yes.
showings.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that
Absolutely.
since 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
That was shocking to me.
And that, we're back to that whole market where, this entire time you could have held an open house, but now we're going back to where you can hold an open house and you can plan a little bit for it, and you have a little bit of time to do the marketing, your whole big shebang that any agent should be doing when they're planning an open house, right? It's not just set a sign up, pick a date, put a thing. There's a whole process to it that ideally has a week or two of work put into it. That's a set known aspect that helps make that open house successful for your sellers, for potential buyers, right? So we're leaning more toward that market, which is why you're seeing those things, the incentivizing for people to show up. That's where that difference is. I do feel like, what were we just talking about? Sorry, my brain just went sideways.
Well, I mean, of how coming out of the gates priced correctly is
Thank
so
you.
important.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I got distracted. Open house is one of my strengths
Yes,
that I
that's
really
right.
love, and so I get distracted very easily by that. My ADHD just runs with me for that. No, but for that pricing, it doesn't matter what market we're in. Pricing well is key. And some of these markets are harder for sellers to wrap their brains around that, right? And some of these markets are harder for agents to explain this. And I really think that's the key point, is when realtors can explain this really well, you have a whole different situation. And Jason happens to be one of the agents that I know that does this incredibly well.
Oh, yeah.
Part of
You
why
set
I love having him on the
expectations.
show.
I do. Typically,
Yes.
we have our, this is what we're hoping for, and this is what we prepare for. So yes, we hope to sell your home very quickly. Even during the mania of earlier this year, it's likely we're going to have this situation play out during the first weekend, maybe make some arrangements out of town. But if nothing happens, this is our plan. This is our game plan. This is what we're going to do week to week, and how we're going to monitor things for you. So if that occurred, they weren't panicking. And I think what we're seeing in the case of some situations is we're seeing some seller panic.
So let's throw this to you guys.
Yeah.
A lot of comments coming in. We'll get to these coming in a matter of moments. Before we do, a question from yours truly. We have summer ending, kids about to go to school, life gets back to organized. and predictable, which as parents, we want that.
Yes.
We want our kids
Yes,
in
very
school,
much.
and we want predictability. The rates dropped on Friday below 5% for the first time in some time. Do you expect Jason and Nikki to see a push or some momentum come September?
I do.
Yes.
I do for a few reasons. I think, yeah, the rates went down. I mean, buyers have really been mauled in this market in many ways. And to see the rates come down just a little bit is going to add a little push to them, put some wind in their sails. But really, even when we look at the big picture, I think that buyers should recognize that even if there's a lull during the summer, it's an excellent opportunity to maybe get a home sale contingency accepted, maybe some closing costs covered, maybe even a traditional inspection process, and maybe even a few dollars off the list price. If we look at the past 18 months, this may very well be the best time to buy a home. We don't know what the fall brings, but usually there's more activity in the fall.
Great take. So the first time I've heard that take. Jason Kirby, since maybe COVID, the last 60 days have been the best time to buy a home.
I think so, and I think that it all depends upon your needs, right, and what your personal situation is. But also when we look at the rates, which is the thing that have scared so many buyers, they're still, almost 2.5, 3 points below the historic norm for interest rates. If I were to tell you that interest rates next year were going to be 7%, wouldn't today look like a great opportunity?
No doubt.
Right? But for the fact that they were 3% last year shouldn't freeze your decision making. It should all be based on your current needs and your situation.
Nikki
So much
Chambliss.
of that, yes. Well, and that whole concept that we've been talking about of date the rate, marry the house, right? That's a really important aspect. I think a lot of times we really, how do I say this nicely? Screw ourselves over by overthinking some of these things. And I am one of the world's biggest overthinkers, right? But when it comes to buying that house, you really need to figure out, okay, truly that pro and con list, it needs to involve things like locking in a fairly fixed expense. To me, that was learning that, and I actually did not know that aspect even in my first few years of real estate. But that aspect of, oh my gosh, you're right, now you have this expense that's not going to increase, not just because rents are going up, but because the pricing of houses is just... It's an
Volatile.
unknown factor.
Yeah.
And the supply of that, it's so
Yeah.
very unknown. So really, if you find a house that works for you right now, that can work for you for the next 3 to 7 to 10 years, depending on if you're willing to be an investor or if this is your forever home. And truly, I'm not a huge fan of people trying to find their forever homes very early in life, mainly because I feel like you can use it as a stepping stone, like we have talked about many times on the show, for investing. People are
Jason?
still investing in real estate right now.
Yeah, good take. You had something to say, Jason.
Really, that was a great point. With so much uncertainty, prices rising across the board on various things, to be able to put in a fixed position your cost of housing is a very powerful thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Throw this to you guys. So I'm reading Neil Williamson, Free Enterprise Forum, and he's
Yes.
going to join us on the show, I believe Friday. Judah has the calendar.
love Neil.
We'll have to check that out. We do love Neil. The county is very restrictive on where you can develop. City of Charlottesville is landlocked, 10.2 square miles, and this is a popular place to live. I'm very curious with you guys of how the rate increases has truly impacted your businesses, because it seems like the area is persevering, doing well, and the homes are still moving. Just might require a little bit more nuanced effort now than it did during, as Jonas Smith said, even turkeys can fly in a hurricane. Of the days of COVID. She's basically meaning you could sell houses during COVID.
Right.
That's changed a little bit here. Can we talk about that, of how this is still just a coveted area? It just takes a more nuanced professional to manage the landscape now.
Yeah, I think the ultimate key is making sure the client lines up well with the home, right? That they're a good match for the product. We saw I think it was in June, the greatest number of cancellations of contracts since the beginning of COVID, which is when we thought zombies were going to start coming out and wandering in the streets. And a lot of that, I think, is just people that weren't dead set sold on the home that they were going to be buying.
Judah Winkauer got a chuckle out of that too. Monica Powell, the Dominion Custom Homes team is watching. Why don't we both give them some props?
Yes.
Dominion Custom Homes and John Kerber.
Absolutely.
Jason Kirby.
Excellent builder, personal experiences, outstanding crew. John is incredible.
They're watching
Yeah.
over there at the DCH headquarters. We love you guys. Nikki, jump in here, and then we'll get to comments from Kevin Higgins, from Grayson, from Steven, and from Stephanie. What has been on the brain over there, Nikki James?
Gosh, so what's been on my brain really is the whole aspect of being a realtor in this market, right? People who want to buy and sell homes, that's going to continue, and there's always advice that's going to help them do that incredibly well. But right now, being a realtor in this market is challenging, and it's really important to do your job well. I feel like for the last 2-ish years, it's been really easy to be in real estate. For even the last 5 years, which is about how long I've had my license, for 5.5, just over, it has been a really simple market to work in, right? There's still all the things business-wise. You still need to know your information. And really, you can kind of not know and still get away with it in a market where clients are just running to you because they really need a house and they need this one and they need it now and they need it yesterday, really is what it is. So being able to know what you're doing, be an expert, being able to have those conversations with your buyers and sellers. Jason, how many times did you have a buyer not get the house they wanted in these last 2 years?
Last 2 years, I'm not sure. So for this particular year, I only had one buyer not get their first pick of home.
Nice.
For this year?
For this year, only one buyer didn't get their first pick, but a lot of that isn't necessarily. It's a combination of factors.
Strong buyers.
Strong buyers, but actually just really, I think, well-prepared and educated buyers.
Yes.
So even though going out, and some of them were first-time home buyers.
That's a humble brag right there from Jason Kirby right there.
I credit my clients, but really what they were able to do is take the information from our initial meeting, right? I laid out the weapons of war, and I was like, these are the things we could do. This is what a winning offer looks like. You may not want to use these weapons, but they are here if we decide you do want to use them. So depending upon their attachment to the home, if it became competitive, they immediately knew what we were going to talk about, how we were going to be strategic, and so they could tap into those and deploy them. And even in one case, we beat out, with financing, we beat out a competing bid that was an endless escalation clause, all cash. And it was just by being tapped into what the seller actually needed and talking with the listing agent that we were able to line up and provide them what they wanted. But by no means was it easy. It's not easy. It really shouldn't be easy. It's a huge decision.
Yes, it really is.
Monica is saying,
Oh, yeah.
and you guys are going to love this, and then Nikki, jump in here. Monica says, thank you for the shout-out, fellas. Great working with Jason Kirby and the Keller team. So the Dominion team is listening at their headquarters right now on
They're
the show.
wonderful. They're really
They're
wonderful.
absolutely wonderful. Nikki, jump in here.
Oh gosh, well, part of why I asked that question is because I already know the answer, right? Jason is somebody who teaches in our brokerage regularly. He was on a panel recently with CAR for their education for YPN. So one of the things that I hear often from realtors are all sorts of conversation around things that make it seem like instead of running their business is running them, which is really easy to do in real estate and in many businesses, right? So being able to take a step back and realize, hey, this really is doable. I can do this for my clients. While I'm focused on the realtor right now, that focus on the realtor makes things better for buyers and sellers, right? Because when we have this certain bar of expectation from our realtors, and our local community is really amazing about that, it makes all the difference to people out there trying to sell and buy homes.
Johnny Ornalis, hello. He owns El Mariachi and Guadalajara, JPA. He's watching the program now. Kevin Higgins, who's watching in Greenwood, Virginia. That's a suburb of Crozet, if you may.
Right.
How do you retain clients, Jason and Nikki, after a home sale? I bought my current home and wonder often why I have never heard from my realtor again. I would not put my agent on my short list for this purchase because of that. Please offer some perspective on how this is a long-term relationship Kevin Higgins would like to talk about.
Well, Kevin actually hit the nail right on the head. You haven't, it's when, so statistically, we'll dive back into numbers, about 95, 96% of home buyers are very, very happy with the agent that helped them. And they say in surveys that they'll actually use them again. A minority of those actually do use their agent again. And as near as we can tell, it happens to do with them not keeping in touch. So for me personally, and Nikki, I'm interested in hearing how you did it. For me personally, they're going to hear from me during the holiday season. I'm going to be in touch with them throughout the year to see if they have needs. Are they planning on renovations with their home? But also, I have to tell you, I go to all my appointments, so I'm at the signing table, I'm at the inspections with them, and we develop a good bond. And sometimes the signing is pretty sad because we're not working together anymore. And I enjoy being able to assure them that I'm here, I'm always here, and I'll probably be bugging them on occasion to see how they're doing. And I think that's really what it comes down to is it's not about buying a home. We're providing a service, we're giving advice, and that happens throughout the entire period of home ownership, whether it's 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. We're advisors to them in that, and I enjoy that part of it. I like those long-term relationships.
Okay, so I'm going to throw myself under the bus just a little bit because here's the thing. I was one of those realtors who, especially as I transitioned from sales to being a team leader, I've not kept in touch with my clients well enough. And I actually had one recently reach out to me asking for help, and I'm really, really glad they did. But then I realized it had been over a year since we last talked. And that's not great. And it's not easy running a real estate business. And I share that because one of the things that I do is I help teach agents how to do that. And sometimes teaching a thing is not the same as doing it yourself. And I have done things myself plenty of times. And I've also, like we've talked about before, I ran a bookkeeping business. And I will tell you that I ran that bookkeeping business, and the same things that I taught my clients to do, I was not always great at doing myself. So a lot of times it's really just reining in yourself from all of the chaos and all the noise that surrounds and making sure you're doing those most important things. And staying in touch with people that have worked with you, that know you, that love you, is one of those most important things if you're building a long-term business, which if you're in real estate, you should be.
I think what's interesting too, you're an exception, I think, though, in that you've assumed this tremendous leadership role in the industry, and so there are good reasons why your calendar is just chock full of stuff. But I think in many cases, what we're dealing with agents who are continuing in the agent role is that unfortunately they just see sale, but this is really service. And it's hopefully a lifetime of service.
Yes.
And there's a difference between that. So I had someone hit me up over a couple weekends ago, complete stranger, messaged me and said, someone told me you'd be able to help. I'm trying to refi my home. There's something wrong with the appraisal. And I spent an hour with her on the phone. I reviewed the appraisal. We talked through the process. There's no sale there, but this is just what we do.
Yes.
And we should do it even more for the people that have worked with us.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes, I think you're 100% right. When I think it's often hard, it's not even when you're saying it's about the sale, it's not that there's a bunch of people out there going, ooh, dollar, dollar, dollar. It's not like that. It's hey, I need to keep consistency with my business. And when we're not doing the things like staying in touch with our past clients, we get caught up in I have this deal, I have this deal, I have this deal, and I want to serve them really, really well. There's all sorts of stability that needs to be happening in the background that's really hard for people who are drawn to real estate to sometimes keep running. So being able to leverage yourself, right?
Yes.
The personalities that are really great at selling real estate are not always really great at maintaining consistency with client relationships. They're not always great at maintaining consistency with a newsletter or a Facebook social media presence, which is why oftentimes they hire people to do that.
They have a team. Yeah.
They have it. Yes, absolutely.
Or tools and technology that kind of fill in the place.
Oh, yeah. I mean, technology is amazing.
Exactly.
You add that technology to a team, and I don't mean a real estate official team.
Yeah.
I just mean hiring people to do the things that you don't need to do, that you often don't want to do. Or maybe you like doing it, but you dabbling on Canva, spending 2 hours to do a thing that you could hire someone who's really great at that to spend 15 minutes doing. When you put it that way, it's a clear choice, right?
Sometimes I'll talk with newer agents, and this kind of gets back to Kevin's question too. I'll talk with newer agents. They'll say, well, what's the most important thing I should be doing to grow my business? The best thing always that you could be doing to grow your business is doing really good work.
Yeah.
That is the best advertisement for your business.
Sure.
But again, no one will remember to mention you if you don't keep in touch. So if you can do really good business and work very hard and keep in touch with your folks, you will have people constantly coming to you with opportunities for you to deal with. You
Well
won't
said,
have to
guys.
go look for it.
Very well said. Quentin Beckham, welcome to the show. The QB of Keller Williams himself on the program, giving you guys props. Kevin Yancey, we'll get to you in a matter of moments in Waynesboro. We see Short Pump on the feed, Williamsburg, Lynchburg, Northern Virginia, and some folks in North Carolina on the heat map. This question's a good one. Can the panel localize some perspective on the Charlottesville and Albemarle markets with what they are seeing from either price points or neighborhoods, what's selling and what's not? I'm curious of their opinions on the local markets with some local data of what they're seeing. That's from Grayson, who watches the show often. So why don't we go open-ended on this one? And Jason, start with you. He wants hyper-local, which I respect and appreciate here. Anywhere you want to go, hyper-local, price point, neighborhood, Charlottesville, Albemarle, what you're seeing, that would be a fresh perspective and take for the audience.
Yeah, I think proximity has always been a key here. So when people can get something that's close to town, that is always moving quickly if priced appropriately. And properties that we don't see moving are typically there's a challenge with the property, or maybe the property might be overpriced. And I'm talking about very close proximity to town. Or it might be something very unusual that requires a unique purchaser.
You know, the other thing that I've noticed is that oftentimes a property that's not gaining traction that sometimes should is one that's not well marketed. If your photography is not on point, if you don't have that, what I call a money shot as your first picture, everybody is looking at these homes. Well, most people are looking at these homes on some small size device, and they are going through, and it's like Tinder for houses. And
Oh,
if you don't,
so well said.
if
That's
you're not
totally
drawn
what it
to
is.
that, right?
Swipe left, swipe
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Good call.
And if that first picture,
I'm going to steal that from you. That was brilliant.
as long as you give me credit, we're
I
good.
will give you credit. Just like he coined, what was it called? Complimentary seller possession. She just called Tinder for houses. That's brilliant.
Oh, I hope.
No, that
Kirby
is
doesn't
brilliant.
hate
That is
mine as much as
exactly
he
what
hated
it is,
Kirby.
dude. That is exactly what it is.
But truly, like if that first picture is not a thing that draws somebody in, if it's some random thing or if it's not good quality, they're just going to keep going
Yeah.
because the assumption there is that the house is not good or the agent's not great or something is off there,
Yeah.
and no one wants to waste their time with that.
We'll play devil's advocate with you guys
Yeah.
for the sake of a talk show. Okay,
Okay.
I'll throw it to you here. Everyone's got an iPhone here. The technology is ridiculous. It seems like the delta with good marketing and bad marketing is very narrow now. There was a time and you guys know better the time frame than I do, say 10 or 15 years ago when the technology was more expensive and not nearly as ubiquitous, where you would see much poorer photos on the MLS. Now the photo content has improved dramatically. It's not where it should be, 100%. It's not 100%. But I mean, these phones, for instance, can do some incredible stuff. I know higher end listings, you're seeing the professional photographers getting out there. They're making some money on behalf of the agents, taking the photos on behalf of the agents.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
let's throw this is the question for the sake of a talk show. Is the marketing as valuable as it used to be when you put a piece of content, a listing on the MLS, and it's getting syndicated to all these other platforms like Zillow and Realtor and Trulia? I mean, throw that topic
Yeah.
out to you guys.
So it's not the distribution's outstanding, by the way.
Yeah.
And right, so that's not an issue anymore. But the tools that are available to us are night and day. So when I started, you were allowed one photo in the MLS. The MLS took it. A guy would take it. Person would take it, roll down their window, hopefully slow down enough so it wasn't blurry. They worked for the MLS. They charged like $5 to take the photo. And eventually we got to the point where you could add a few more photos to the MLS feed and you'd have to scan them in. And it was absolutely horrible. You had to go see these homes to have any idea of what was going on with the property. So we were showing lots of properties. So the tools available to us now are incredible. When we look at Matterport scanning, there are other tools too that do virtual scanning, drone video.
Oh, yeah.
We do have some great local photographers as well that do great work, but it's not so much that the iPhone can do a great job. It's that most agents are not good photographers. So you can put that tool in an agent's hands and they're all thumbs. You should really have a professional that you're outsourcing to that's doing this work. For our team, on the Beckham team, we do that for every single listing.
You guys do a great job.
We have a professional that we bring in that we keep on retainer. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And we know that he does a better job than we could possibly do. Unfortunately, I think in our market, Jerry, we are seeing agents who have not employed any of these tools because their listings sold within hours, even if they put a sideways photo up on the MLS.
That's where I'm going at.
Yes.
So the tide is dropping. and we're going to see who's wearing pants very shortly.
There you
But
go.
We're going to keep doing what we've been doing the whole time. Even if it's sold in 12 hours, we went all out with the marketing.
Okay, there you go. That's what I was looking for. That was fantastic. Nikki, that's tough to follow right there.
I have nothing I can say now. I'm so sorry.
That's tough to follow.
So I think he's on point, though, because here's the thing. Like I mentioned earlier, it's been pretty simple. It's been pretty smooth over the last 5-ish years, definitely 2 or 3. And right now, my hope is that people will not tolerate really bad service. I feel like you should be getting your money's worth for what you're paying for that realtor, and you can. And if you're not...
So what's that happen? That happens in the listing appointment? Those are questions the seller asked in the appointment?
They
That's
should.
part of it.
How are you going to
Yeah.
market my property?
They should.
Yeah.
Absolutely ask questions like that. They should be
Can I see
asking,
examples?
let me see an example
Yes.
of
Okay.
your work.
Yeah.
And if it's a newer agent, right, and they're developing a portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
they might be able to say, look, this is what my photographer has done with other properties. There's all sorts of ways that a home seller's expectations can be managed and think, okay, my marketing is going to look like that. This is, and I'm going to speak to agents right now more than the community, is that you are building a portfolio of your work. This is your calling card. I have received listings as a result of the marketing efforts we make on properties by my owners showing the marketing to other homeowners, and they think, gosh, my agent didn't do that. That shouldn't happen.
Well said. Candace Cox watching the program. She's watching the show from New York, says, I would not miss you guys. Jason and Nikki are simply the best. She's KWA, right? Candace?
She is, yes,
She's
she is,
wonderful.
yes.
Watching from New York, 3 states on the feed right now. You would think the marketing with a more competitive market is going to be more important than ever.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. We had, even during the peak, we would do all the things we normally do, and I think consistency is important. But because we would do, for example, Matterport scanning, we had one bidder from Brazil that won out bidding against other parties. But this particular bidder had toured virtually through the entire home. He can measure the countertops. He can look at the appliances, just even not without relying even on the agent that represented him. So I think these tools are absolutely key. We're at the point now where you have to pull out all the stops. And I think, too, when we're looking at a market where the prices are a little soft, an agent, a listing agent specifically, cannot reasonably talk about the idea of a price reduction if the homeowner is not sure that every other lever has been pulled.
Well said.
Because that's how we should really respect our clients' equity.
Philip Dow, King of Scottsville. We'll get to your comment here in seconds. Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum, is watching. Siva Weekly is watching. Quentin Beckham, the QB, has this comment for you guys. Bidding wars have never been guaranteed. As we move into this new market, your potential to have bidding wars or great showing volumes is very dependent on your marketing and the home being seen, showing well online, and having the best service from your agent. Well said, QB.
Absolutely.
We've coined it on the I Love Seville network and V&V brands as a digital curb appeal. Your digital curb appeal better be fantastic.
I like that.
Where like the ladies, the moms, my wife was a perfect example. If it doesn't catch her attention in like 5 seconds, I swear she is swiping to the next house.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Literally like 5
Absolutely.
seconds. I'm like, well, can I see the inside of the backyard? She goes, no, the digital curb appeal did not appeal to me. And she's doing what you said. It's
Yes.
like Tinder, which I'm going to steal that right there, of housing. That was brilliant. People are loving this. Why don't we go? Jump in here.
Well, so part of this too, though, is that's where having a realtor who can kind of rein that in. I can't tell you how many times I've had a client say, oh, I don't want to see that. I'm like, well, hey, what did you see of this? Because everything that I'm seeing fits what you're telling me you want in a home. Yes, the photography is bad, and that just gives you a better opportunity to compete for this. And this doesn't matter if it was 2 years ago or 5 years ago, the conversation was exactly the same.
That's a good take. You're seeing that as an opportunity.
Absolutely, but that means having a realtor who's taking a look and knowing what's on the market that might help their clients. A lot of times clients are like, oh yeah, but I'm showing all the things. Sure, please bring me anything you see. I want to know what you're seeing. I'm also on this as well.
It's tough to do that,
Yeah.
right? Because I'll look, like if I'm looking for myself and I'm going through the photos, by photo 5 or 6, sometimes I actually feel depressed. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to go look at this home because I'm just going to be depressed when I go look at this home.
That's my wife to a T right there.
Well, but you
Literally.
really have to be able to, and it's different when you're looking for yourself. Now you're very similar to one of those buyers out there. And that's where having that trusted advisor who can kind of step outside of the situation. I'm not buying this house, you are, and I want the best situation for you as the buyer.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it you're really looking for? What is really important? And that often changes during the purchasing process. And being able to know from the beginning what they think they're looking for helps me be able to weed through that, right? That whole, we should not be out showing 1,000,001 homes outside of the
Correct.
rare exception of someone who really doesn't have it narrowed down. And ideally, we're going to be able to narrow that down way before we step
Sure.
foot into a house.
Yeah. Curious strategy question for you
Yeah.
guys. What if the home does not, the home doesn't show great? Do you go the strategy of a couple of photos to get people to see it in person, less is more, or do you still roll out the entire gambit of pictures, 20 to 25, for the photo slideshow on the MLS?
So
You see both strategies.
I have. Do you have a comment?
Well, so
Yes,
first, you
go
said
first,
20 to
please.
25. I can't tell you how many listings I see out there with well, I don't even know what the max number is. but
I've seen
almost
50 to
max.
60. Don't you think
There's
too
a
many
max-
photos is too much?
It is way too much.
I think it's 74 is the limit.
74?
In our local market.
There are very, very few listings that should ever have 74 pictures on them.
Amen.
And the way you lay out your pictures is important. Remember, you're drawing someone in. If you're not walking them through a process that they want to participate in, they're going to stop either before picture 1 or by picture 5, they're bored and depressed and like, oh, I can't even. So
I think you're onto
there's
something
strategy
here.
to all of this,
Yeah.
and I don't think enough people factor that in.
So do you go digital curb appeal first, outside, the drive-by, you're walking up to the front door, you're seeing the house first? Because that's generally the strategy taken.
Yes, and it depends on the house.
It depends completely on
Big
the
time.
house.
But I'm
Okay.
not going to do 15 pictures outside when that's not really the main selling point, right?
Yeah.
But I am going to start with an outside money picture, right?
Yeah.
The
Right.
money shot.
Yeah, your hero pick in advertising is what it's
Yes.
called.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
And
The hero pick, yeah.
And, buyers will think through, we want the photography to, in general, right, your typical fairly standard
Yes.
property, we want the photography to resemble their experience when they arrive at the property. Something from the curb,
Yeah,
right, something closer to the door,
yeah.
something on the inside, right? And then maybe we go, typically buyers will want to see common spaces, then bedrooms in a particular order.
Yes.
And then we're going to go right back outside and look at features.
I
on
like
the
it that
outdoors.
way.
That's exactly
yeah,
what I do.
And there's a reason why.
Yeah.
It's just how we psychologically are
Because you're like,
wired.
visually, you're like walking
Right.
through the house.
But if
Yes.
we have a condo, for example, and a picture of the exterior of the condo community will not be attractive, nor is it really relevant. So we're going to start with something that's relevant on the inside. There might be something spectacular about a given home that has a more less spectacular curb appeal, and we want to grab attention. And so on occasion, we'll start with an interior photo as being the primary. And I've done that with
Like a sexy kitchen.
yeah, even
Yeah.
detached homes, I've done that, had people freak out and all line up to go see the home. And they're okay with it because they're not too worried about the curb appeal. So I think, yeah, it does depend upon the
yeah.
home, but there's a certain way we expect things to
How about the
flow.
home that needs TLC and doesn't photo well?
So if it's priced right, I think the photos should depict what people are going to expect when they get there. It's when we overpromise and underdeliver in the marketing campaign that we get lots of negative feedback. The kind of feedback I want if I have a listing that needs some work is, hey, Jason, my clients see the value. And they're only going to go see it if they recognize that this is a property where they're going to put in some sweat equity, maybe they're going to do a renovation loan on it, or they're just going to, they're going to paint it and be fine and happy.
Exactly. It varies.
So it really does depend, but I can have our photographer make a room look twice the size as it really is.
Oh, yeah.
I never want that to happen.
Right.
Ever. I want all expectations to be managed. If it's going to be a home that's going to be a bit of a fixer, I want it to look like the most attractive fixer on the market. And that's it.
Absolutely. Well, and going back to the whole iPhone situation, there are two extreme sides of that, right? You have pictures that we talked about earlier that are sideways or blurry or really bad quality. That's just like,
Fishbowl.
who
Yeah.
took that? But then the other extreme is when you have photographers that are professional that go a little too far
Yeah.
with really great intention, right? But obviously that fridge is not
It's
the
like
size
the
of a
filters
wall.
on Instagram.
Yes.
It is
You know what I'm
it's
saying?
worse
Yes.
than the filters in
Yeah.
Instagram because
Yeah.
sometimes the filters are believable even when you're an alien, more so than some of the things I see on the MLS.
Have you
right?
seen me wake up in the morning? Okay.
No, I
Those
haven't, which is why
filters.
Instagram's
Okay.
believable. I'm just
I
saying.
don't look like this in the morning. Dude, this is like a mastermind on marketing properties over here. I love where the show has gone here. Neil Williamson's got some comments. You have 5 brokerages on the feed right now.
That's awesome.
Let's go with
Yes.
Neil. Should winter sellers take photos in the summer? And he's asking for a friend. Wow, someone might pick up some business here. Should winter sellers take photos in the summer if you're thinking about coming on the market Q4, Q1? It's a great question.
I think so. I think so. They don't have to be professional. Typically, we put them at the end of the reel, and we
There
mark
you
them as
go.
seasonal. So that way, if I'm showing Neil's friend's home in the winter and it's covered in snow, I can say, look, this is what it looks like. There's actually grass under there, and it's not dirt, for example, right, for the exterior. So I think it's great. And sometimes some owners have some lovely seasonal
Oh, yes.
blooms on their property and different colors, and yeah.
But I would say at that point, that's where this whole conversation about having a realtor way early on, sooner than you think you need, is really important because they can help with that. Because I've had sellers send me photos that I was like, oh, these are really not, they're your property and I see what you see in it, but I really don't want to put this on the MLS. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, and it varies.
Yeah.
If I'm marketing a property in summer and it has this beautiful mountain view in the wintertime, I want people to see that mountain view.
Yeah, I have a listing currently on the market, and the owner had told me, he's like, something happens with the fog here that's amazing, and I'll send you some photos. And I've heard this before from sellers, and I said, absolutely, I'll take a look at them. And then I saw the photos, and I was so blown away. Absolutely, they're in the reel.
Yeah.
And then I experienced it showing the home, and I actually saw the fog happen
Oh, nice.
coming up from the Ravenna River, and it was just stunning.
Is this 115 Langford Avenue?
No, this is the home on Fraze Mill Road, 1812 Fraze Mill Road. Beautiful home.
Let's sell a house today, Jason.
Oh, it's a stunning custom home. Incredible thought was put into the design. It has access to a creek running through the property with shoals and rocks and incredible pool, tree house.
Oh, yeah,
It's
this is
just
the
a
one with the
beautiful
tree house.
property.
I could
Views-
live in that
love
tree
tree
house. I'm
house.
just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
No,
Views-
this is not just your typical tree house.
Some of the
I
best.
get
gonna-
yelled at by my wife. I go to the treehouse. I
Yes.
think this is great.
You
Some of
might
the
just want to
best
have
views.
internet and a TV set up there.
Yeah, some of the
And a
best views I've
kegerator.
ever seen.
That
Paul
too.
MacArthur.
Mini fridge.
We have a lot of questions. I like how you're thinking, Shameless. I like how you're thinking. A lot of comments coming in here, guys, so we're trying to get to as many as possible. You guys are crushing the show today.
Well, this
Crushing
is
the
awesome,
show.
and we've got these great people who engage with us that keep this conversation
Yes.
going. I mean, while we could sit and talk about this all day,
Yeah, you can do this all day.
at
This is
some
what we do
point,
all day
like,
long, yeah.
it really matters having people engage.
The content
and
is
asking
crowdsourced by the
questions.
viewers and listeners.
Yes,
I love it.
and that is key.
I love it.
That's
I
what makes
absolutely
this
love
great.
it. So let's go to Philip's comment. He's watching in Scottsville. Philip, I'm sorry I did not get to your comment sooner. Philip Dow, where does your comment go, Philip Dow? I'll find your comment, Philip Dow, here in a matter of moments. Before I do, I'll go to Paul MacArthur
Yes,
of Avenue.
I just saw that.
Have to
He's on
balance
point.
really nice pictures and overly enhanced or misleading pictures. Some photographers and agents push that limit to the edge.
Absolutely.
And it gets
Yes.
back to what Jason said. It's all about under-promising and over-delivering.
Exactly.
It's not the other way around of over-promising, and then they get to the house and they're like,
Yeah.
what happened to the filters here that we were
Yeah.
accustomed to seeing here?
It's also just respectful. So if I'm a listing agent on a particular, and I work with buyers and sellers.
You don't want to waste people's time.
I
Yes.
treat those buyers agents like my customers that walk into my shop, and I do not want that to happen. I think that's a disservice to the community.
Well said. Philip Dow, here's his comment. Not sure if you agree, but my realtor told me when buying land is the most important, he says. You can always alter the home if it doesn't meet your need. I can see land increasing in value and as an investment. My agent said land was the most important. You buy that here? Especially in this market of subs and remodeling being so expensive and very difficult to find here?
I
And
think-
the time?
Well, what's the purpose?
I think that's exactly what
Right,
it comes
what are
down
you
to.
trying to do?
And what is the nature of the land?
Yeah.
I have a client who has some land, and she has it on multiple agricultural programs, and so she receives an income in spurts, but it's all part of her strategy, and eventually the land will be totally paid off. That's one strategy. But if we're looking at speculating, it's much like any other investment you could pick up out there. It just all depends, and my crystal ball's been broken for a while.
Well, but also truly that whole, the last show we had, oh no, what was her name? I wrote it down and I don't have that in front of me, who was asking about her very specific situation and had a family member living in the home, right? Which we didn't know at the beginning of the conversation. Right now, there is way too much unknown.
Oh, that was,
It's so general. Was Karen?
Was it Joanna Mackey?
Thorpe, maybe?
No. Carol Thorpe. Mill Creek.
Okay,
Carol
yep.
Thorpe. I'll
Thank
tag
you.
her right now.
Yes.
You're exactly right.
So, but it's just the same with, oh no, so what's the gentleman's name right now who's asking the question about land?
Philip Dowell.
Philip Dow.
From
So with
Scottsville.
Philip Dow from Scottsville, like we just don't know enough information.
Mm-hmm.
So on the surface, sure, that sounds like great advice. And it all depends. That is always the answer when we don't have enough information, is it depends, because it does. Some land is not valuable at all because it's just positioned poorly and it's just the worst piece, but that's not most land.
Yeah, it ultimately depends on the purpose, and there are some homes that cannot be changed the way homeowners would like them to be, and they have to go get different homes. So
Yeah.
there are no necessarily any hard and fast rules, I think. And I think in general, from people I've talked to who do like to invest in land, their main key tenet is to buy in the path of growth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Always.
And a guy who's done that very, very well, Wendell Wood, United Land Company, the largest landowner in Albemarle County, guys. No coincidence, he's got a mansion on top of the mountain overlooking Central Virginia. The man is doing well. More comments coming in fast and furious here. Let's talk local markets. This is a follow-up from Stacy to Grayson's comment. Can you guys talk about which local markets have gotten soft or softer than they may have been? We can go multiple ways on this. We can either go price point or distance from epicenter of employment. I would think both price point and the further out you get will impact softness, if you may.
It's a good question. I think it's too early for a good answer to that question, because even though we've seen inventory double, it's still 1/3 the inventory we need to reach a balanced market.
Well,
We
and
have
why
2
has it
months
doubled?
supply.
I mean, truly.
Just homes sitting out a little
It's
bit more.
because days on market is a little longer.
But I wouldn't say because a home is selling in 31 days instead of 1 day that we've got
It's
got
not
something.
scarlet letter.
It's
Oh,
not,
gosh,
and
yeah.
not to the point to where we can look at communities and think, oh gosh, this community is not as hot as it used to be. I'm not seeing any specific red flags anywhere on the map.
No.
It's just, again, anything priced right and decent condition is going to sell.
Well, the easy answer is it's all softened, and it's not that simple, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
that's very, and I know that you were asking for more specific and neighborhoods and that kind of thing, but I think you're right. I think it's too early to really gauge much on that.
Yeah.
Keith Smith and Jonas Smith are in San Diego watching the program right now and saying
very
good morning
early there,
to
yeah.
Jason and Nikki and I on the program. Good morning, Smiths. We hope you guys are enjoying sunny San Diego and your trip to Seattle here on the near horizon. Can I say this, and maybe you guys will disagree, and if you do, please disagree. It seems to me that the jumbo market, and what's jumbo now, Judo? Is it high
I think
sixes?
it's high sixes and over, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems to me the jumbo market's gotten soft, and it seems to me that $1 million plus 1-1 is definitely staying stickier than ever.
It's quieter for sure.
Quieter. That's a better
for
word.
sure. But we're coming out of a phase when maybe things were selling quickly. But prior to that, it was not unusual.
That's a good point.
It was not unusual for anything between 1 and 3 million to have larger properties
Oh,
in
yes.
18-month on average days on market.
That's a good point.
And they would sell for close to list. So yeah, it's different than it was. But again, I don't think it's necessarily.
Yeah, and in that previous
California.
market, it was different because it was a matter of waiting for the right buyer for that specific property, because oftentimes in that price point, the property was unique in one way or another. Whereas over the last couple of years, it's been very different. Prices have increased, inventory decreasing, to where it's like, okay, I just need a house and this will do, or this will work, or I'll alter this or that wall will come down, right? There's so many other factors being considered now that were not before.
And I think too, in that price point as well, we're often working with clients who have many options in front of them and not hard needs in many cases. So if we have a lot of uncertainty in the economy and they just want to see until things become a little bit quieter, maybe one land war in Europe short of what we've got right now, people are more committed to making long-term decisions like that, especially if we're dealing with second home or third home buyers
Oh, yes.
in that price point. They don't necessarily have to make a move.
Patricia Irby watching the program right now. Patricia Irby, welcome to the show. And KWA is representing today. And if you've seen Patricia Irby hit a tennis ball, watch out for that forehand. She is a force. Oh my goodness. Very talented tennis player. All right, how about this question for you guys? Rates have gone down. And as Jerry said, the students are going back to the summer, back to school from summer very soon. Does the panel think that the fall will look anything at all like the spring, or are those days behind us?
What do you think?
Well, so I don't think that in the past that fall really looked quite like spring. It picked up from like a summer lull, but saying it looked like spring is a little bit of a stretch, right? I know what you mean, and I just want to be really careful with how I communicate that. Do I think we're going to have a little bit of an uptick with activity? I do. I think that people are going to come back from taking a break over the summer. They're going to get kids back in school. They're going to take some deep breaths and going to be like, okay, let's pick up where I left off. And that's not going to be everyone, but I think it's going to be enough that we're going to see that difference in the market.
We have,
This fall's going to be like fall 2019.
it could very well be.
Right?
And
Not
there's a
fall
lot of potential.
2021.
I hope
Yeah, no.
so. I hope it
Yeah.
does,
Yeah.
and I hope it does not look like the spring. When talking with buyers, I think there's a lot of fatigue just in terms of prices rising in general. And again, we're going back to preferential bias, but there's a new narrative now for buyers. It's very different than what maybe sellers are experiencing, but they're going to be less hesitant, I think, to do the bidding they kind of did in the spring. For good reason, and,
Yeah.
and it's a different it's a different
Yes.
market. So I just hope it's not like the spring. Again, the past 2 years have taught us that what we really hope for does not matter at all, and so we're prepared one way or the other. Let's put it that way.
Carol Thorpe watching the show. Nikki
Hi,
Chambliss, say hello to Carol.
Hello. So good to have you back.
Yeah, Carol Thorpe, you mentioned, we
I
love when you
know.
watch the program, Carol. All right, guys, so why don't we throw this to you guys here? Do we see, we get this question a lot, and we got this question on the feed here. Waynesboro, the outer counties, Augusta, what's your take here? Are we going to see softer markets out there because of the drive? We've talked price. We haven't highlighted distance so much here. Buckingham and Waynesboro were in fuego. Do you still expect that?
It depends on the alternatives buyers have. If they can find homes closer into town that are reasonably priced, then yes. If they cannot, which they have not been able to, it's still a tight inventory, then no. Those markets may be just continuing on their uptrend.
I think you just mentioned two things that are separate conversations, Waynesboro and Buckingham. Those are not the same type of markets,
Well
right?
said.
And I don't know that Buckingham was quite en fuego as much as Waynesboro.
Well
And
said
I think
as well.
Waynesboro's ability to stay there at a higher level is better than Buckingham's. Not because there's anything wrong with Buckingham, but with Waynesboro, you have more opportunity
More
for
amenities.
employment.
Yeah.
You have more opportunity for amenities. There's just a little more going on there with that being more of a city town area that sustains itself outside of people going and working in Charlottesville potentially, right?
I think too, with low inventory, one of the factors we may see going forward for our region is that we're becoming less micro market and more macro market. So
What do you mean by that?
Well, with such few options available, you've got people working in Charlottesville who live in Stanton or Waynesboro or in Buckingham. You've got people working at Injic that buy something down in Covesville. And so the market is becoming less localized and maybe more regional. And so we might see things kind of going up and down in unison. Again, just because there are so few options out there.
Kevin Yancey, Mr. Waynesboro, in fact, dubbed the king of Waynesboro, says Waynesboro is about to become the next Crozet, and he follows up by saying if any agent is sleeping on Augusta County or Waynesboro, they're going to miss a boom. Gas is coming down daily, and then we'll add the more ubiquitous nature of electric vehicles and the opportunity to work remotely for employers from an ISP. All tailwinds for Augusta County and Waynesboro, and why we think those markets are going to do well. Are we missing anything here? I don't think any of us are knocking Waynesboro. If anything, we see the growth heading to Augusta and
Yes.
Waynesboro,
We
right?
do, and I don't know agents regardless of where they are in our region, that don't work there Everyone.
You
Okay.
had to.
Everyone
Well,
goes.
I mean, it's
yeah.
only 30
It's
minutes, 25, 30 minutes away.
25, 30 minutes. It's actually it's a beautiful drive.
Yeah.
And that was birthed during COVID. You guys
Yeah.
had to expand the footprint, right? Of where you were doing business.
Well, our particular
depends.
team was always out there.
Okay.
But I think
Yeah.
the more agents started to go out there that hadn't gone out there before, we always recognized it as a tremendous value. And, there was a time when Lake Monticello was a tremendous value, and that started to go away. But I've had many clients buy and sell in Waynesboro. It's very convenient living. It really is. You've got to commute, but many of our folks coming into this community don't see 30 minutes as a long commute.
Well, because and it's not just for
No.
our area, but for any area in general where
Yeah.
you're potentially needing to drive in from somewhere, right?
Right.
30 minutes is that's almost expected, not an inconvenience.
Right.
Right. So I would say that the last home that I sold in Waynesboro, that went to someone who had just shifted to working remote and had
Yeah.
reassurances from their employer that that was going to stay that way, and that made a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah,
Yes.
and as fiber spreads, we're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
have way more options for people out of this region to come in
Yes.
and work remotely.
Kevin
It'll be
says I
nice.
can be at Fontaine 250 bypass in 18 minutes normal
nice.
speed from Waynesboro. Here is Paul's question, or Paul's comment, Paul MacArthur. Everyone has to remember, prior to the pandemic, there still was not enough houses. We were already in a seller's market in most price points, and that really has not changed. That's a great point.
Oh, yeah.
It's millions under inventoried nationally. This country is from a housing standpoint, and in Central Virginia, thousands under inventoried in Central Virginia. So we'll throw this question to you guys, some rapid fire comments here. Are we seeing all cash offers and cash at closing to cover appraisal gaps? Has that gone away? Are you still seeing that?
Not as much.
It has not gone away, and
Yeah.
we're not seeing it near as much as we have been, right? It definitely is changing.
I'm probably seeing more. I've had more agents call me this weekend to talk about how does a home sale contingency work.
What?
Yeah,
No.
which is great because but when you look
Sorry
at,
I said that.
but if you look at an agent who joined our industry within the past 24 months, home sale contingencies just
know.
weren't happening. They happened in the shorter inventory a couple of years ago, a few years ago, and so we're kind of heading back into that. So I know of these agents that at least a couple, and I've talked with other agents that are like, yeah, we're seeing more home sale contingencies. I'm seeing more of the normal stuff than I'm seeing of the crazy bidding stuff.
Well said.
Again, it could be anecdotal, but yeah.
Nikki.
Well, and I think what you just mentioned is really key. The fact that we have this whole group of any agent who joined in the last couple of years, or who maybe was not active but decided to be because of the market, that don't know some of these aspects. And it's really important that you get yourself educated, right? This isn't something that you can just decide, oh, it's okay, I don't know, I'll figure it out. No. You don't want to figure that out, because what will happen is you'll figure that out with a client who will be very displeased.
Here's an interesting question. Kelsey's watching the program. Kelsey, where are you watching? We appreciate your comments. Are you guys having difficulty finding home inspectors, appraisers, and or people to do upkeep on homes to get them to go to the market? I know that was a tough topic and a highlight point of this show during the peak of the pandemic. That was a great comment.
Yeah, inspectors and appraisers are already on standby. Again, that has to do with the shrinking of the market, transaction-wise, that we're seeing. So they're already in that nice aspect of that, is that deals can be done very quickly with financing. When it comes to people to do work, that has been a problem for a long time.
Yes, it's challenging. It's
talking about the
definitely,
handiwork here.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. During this time, even in the last 2 years, it has been very incremental in making decisions. Yes, a lot of things went without question, and part of the next steps was, ooh, who am I going to get to do this project? The walls I was talking about taking down earlier, right?
Right.
All of that work has to be done by someone, and we have a shortage of people to do that work. And it's one of the conversations that comes up on the show kind of often, with encouraging people to get into the trades, right?
Yeah.
We had, with the building you guys are in, we needed some electrical work done. And we reached out to a couple electricians, and they said, we're not going to come for 3 hours of work.
Yep.
Exactly.
Literally,
Yeah.
that's what they said.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Usually what we're finding is, because we'll have these lists of people that we often recommend.
Yeah.
Right? And that list changes over time, of course. People come and go from the trades and go up and down in quality and desire to show up. But I usually will have agents in particular markets and areas that I'll text and say, who are you using right now for stucco, for example? Just yesterday I needed someone, and multiple agents gave me names, and it was great. So just networking with fellow agents and people you know is the best way to get a hold of good quality people, always.
Absolutely, yeah.
You guys crushed this. I love doing the program with you guys. With so many agents watching here, give a message to, and buyers and sellers potentially, give a message to those in the community watching. Today was a great show.
Oh, okay.
I'll go.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I like talking to fellow agents. So with the market shrinking, it's very important to be mindful of how you're spending your money in your business. And I think I've mentioned this before. I apologize for my broken record. But if you're not working off of like a profit and loss statement, that is really something you should start doing. And if you need resources, you can reach out to me or Nikki Chambliss, and we can connect you with easy resources that are free that'll help you get organized. I think also now is the time to, getting back around to the beginning of the show, keeping in touch with your past clients, because they are your biggest fans for all the hard work you've done. And I think it's a good time to ask yourself, what is your brand? How do you distinguish yourself? And hopefully you're in a space with a brokerage where your personal brand matters and it's not just in lockstep with a more conformist, larger image that's being pushed on you.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and to follow up, like that whole aspect of the P&L, right? What is your business plan? Right? How many years have you been in business, and how often do you take a look at what your business plan is? You should at least have an easy go-to one-pager that you can look at and evaluate and see if you're on track and on point. And what are the steps that you're taking consistently, very intentionally and strategically, like we keep talking about, that are going to get you to those numbers, right? That's really, really important, especially as we've talked about most of this show, the expectation of delivering to buyers and sellers is higher. It needs to be higher.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah, it should be.
It should always be.
Right.
I think for agents as well and just the general public, an excellent book I highly recommend is Why Smart People Make Big Money Mistakes by Gary Belsky and Thomas Gilovich. It's basically just a collection of economic fallacies, how we think through them, how we combat them and deal with them. I mentioned confirmation bias earlier. Another one is price anchoring, when people are stuck on a particular number and can't shake free from it. How do we talk to someone like that, and how do we avoid doing things like that? Agents and the general public.
Absolutely.
It's a great book.
That's a great tip. I think I'm going to read that book myself.
So-
Oh, it's great. It's very entertaining.
CAR has a really great education opportunity coming up September 1st.
Okay.
Pam O'Brien's going to be in talking about shift and relating that sum to your business plan. We do a business planning clinic every year that right now is being held at CAR. I don't know the date for that right off the top of my head, but that is open to all realtors or people interested. It's really geared toward those in the industry or getting into it.
Sure.
But it's going to hit, even before I was a team leader, that was one of those things on my list to go to every year. I'm going to take away something different every year that's going to help me increase and up my business and do better and be more on track. So these things are really key to participate in to keep things going well, right? We don't want to become stagnant. You don't want to end up in a spot where you're like, oh, I'm not doing these things.
Yeah.
Should I be? How did I not know?
Yeah, and she's
Right?
a great teacher. She's seen everything.
Yeah,
This
truly.
is a tough closing topic here, and the only reason I'm bringing this up here is because I'm generally intrigued. I should have probably saved this for a different show because the show's gone so darn good here. This is a question from Laura. She says, with the market becoming so tough, do you expect less competition in your business? And both of them, both Nikki and Jason and KWA, they do a hell of a job of preparing their agents and giving them this foundation for success. So they're really primed for growth and success, the team. But I'm curious of that topic. And I'm very curious with you because you're a
Okay.
positive guy here. But I think the realists would say that you're going to see some competition erode from this market.
Yes. To answer her question, yes, I think it is going to be a tougher time for agents going forward because before business was just literally falling in our laps, right?
Yes.
And if you had a beating heart and you had a cup of coffee, you could go all day doing plenty of transactions and helping lots of people. But I think that we're going into a period where we're kind of going back to the way real estate was before then, where you need to kind of go out, be a good advisor, work hard, and be a fiduciary. So what we're looking at, though, is we have about a 15% reduction in the volume of transactions that's going on. That's less food on the table for the amount of agents that have shown up to sit down and eat. So yes, I think we are going to continue to see that trend, and I think we will see fewer realtors in our business next year, this time, than we see this year at this time. I think what's really interesting, though, is when I look back at the numbers during the last Great Recession, when we saw a major contraction. I was not a KW agent, but if the market went down, I think the market went down 20% in terms of transaction and volume in general. Keller Williams increased its agent count by 20% during that time. It is actually tailored and designed to weather storms. The whole system, the programs, the education, none of it changes in a down market. We've also been very focused on just being proactive in education and training and helping
Yes.
other agents. So if there's an agent experiencing trouble, we're on the phone with them, talking with them and helping them through their problems. So there's a lot of, I think, camaraderie that lends the emotional power to get through this phase.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
And I think, too, if you're an agent out there and let's say you sold, 30 homes last year and you can sell 30 homes this year, if the market has shrunk 15%, your market share has actually grown. And so the idea is at least tread water, keep your chin above, power through, and as the market comes back, there are many more people that know about you and you're answering the
Absolutely.
phone.
Well, and I think
said.
that competition aspect that she's asking about, yes, I think the competition is going to be stronger. It's not going to decrease. And I feel like what she's asking is, will there be a smaller number of realtors? But I do believe that question is separate about then whether or not we're going to have more competition. Will the number of realtors decrease? Probably. It would be very, very surprising for that
I'll
not
even
to.
say this, and I'll say this, you guys don't have to say this.
Okay.
And first, we'll welcome Ashley Butler to the program. I believe she's CMO of CAR,
Yes, hello, Ashley.
marketing director. The number of realtors in CAR probably needed to shrink. And that's me saying that, not you guys. I mean, there was like 1,200 or so. There was too many. There's too many.
It's often the
Yeah.
predictor of a change in the market.
Yes. Right. When you start seeing too many,
Yeah.
and then we need to see, you guys have coined the O shift. We need to see a shift happening.
And to say it's going to be less competitive, there'll be fewer other agents out there.
Yes.
But probably what is going to happen is the agents remaining are actually the most competitive, competent agents you see.
The
in
best.
market.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily less competitive or easier by any
Exactly.
means at all.
The talent
Yeah.
rises to the top in a market that
Yes.
holds people accountable, and that's what's happening.
It's a top-heavy industry where about 80% of the business is done by the top 20% of agents anyway.
More people will be playing in the major leagues is what's going to happen, right? It's just going to be, that's the shift and should be for where our agents are.
It's a great way to finish. You guys crushed it today.
Thank you.
Seriously, this was dynamite. Jason Kirby and Nikki Chambliss, Keller Williams Alliance, well represented today on Real Talk, guys, on a Monday. The entire show, I thought the show that really offered a lot of value proposition was the 20 minutes or so that we talked about marketing a listing in a tough environment. And that was at the middle part of the show. For the agents that are watching, I think you guys would find that very fascinating and enlightening. But the entire show is archived at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. The show is powered by Keller Williams Alliance and a host of trusted advisors, which you see on screen on the bottom. Judah Wickhauer should be highlighted as well. He's the director and keeps us online. The I Love Seville show is up in 1 hour and 6 minutes, guys. We will see you then. And props to Nikki and Jason for a job well done.
Thank you.
So long,
Thank you
everybody.
so much.
You guys crushed it. Jason, you're dynamite. Nikki, you too.
Well, and I'll be back next week with Carrie Briggs. So, it'll be exciting.